Listen to their stories. Stories of success, stories of neglect, stories of pain and struggle. Walk in their shoes and feel their pain. And give our shoes to let them feel the comfort we feel. What must the church do in promoting inter-tribe harmony among Nagas? Before I give my roadmap, let me make these two quick observations. Obviously, biblical Christian faith is not deeply rooted in majority of those who profess themselves to be Christian. Christianity is seen as a religion and not as a relationship. And the second is this: the church is not free from the spirit of tribalism. These two observations put the church right on the spot. Let me lay out the roadmap, which the church must take, which I as a church leader must take. First, the church must take her faith seriously. Second, the church must take her teaching ministry seriously and not just be preaching feel-good sermons and gospel. The message of life yonder or beyond must make an impact here on earth first. Biblical teaching on sin and its consequences must be seriously taught. The church must not shy away from her prophetic role. The church cannot lose the power of speaking the truth, justice, and righteousness at all costs. The sixth, the church must come strong on corruption and come clean of her corrupt practices that are not biblical. The church must make positive influence in the society and not be influenced by the society by becoming part of the problem rather than the solution. She must call a spade and strive for teaching what is right from wrong. 8, the church must teach both the gospel, the moral law and biblical ethics without compromisation. This is the duty of the church's pastors and teachers. And when the church concludes that biblical faith or righteousness requires it, take a public stand on some issues. Purity and morality must not just become good principles and be kept in the closet, but must be taught with all seriousness in the pulpit. 10. The church must avoid alliances with the secular forces to run their agenda, whether it be the state or the tribal organizations, but stand above those elements that are not conducive for peaceful coexistence without being used. Why do I outline all these things, which seems to be unrelated to the subject matter? I do so because if the church does her task well, the member constituent will do well, And when they do well, there will be harmony in the society. In the end, there are only two possible attitudes which Christians can adopt towards the world. One is to escape, and the other is to be engaged. Escape and engagement. Escape means turn our backs on the world in rejection, washing our hands of it, and hardening our hearts against the agonized cries for help. In contrast, engagement means turning our faces towards the world in compassion, getting our hands dirty, sore, and worn in its service, and feeling deep within us the stirring of the love of God which cannot be contained. Instead of seeking to evade our social responsibilities, we need to open our ears and listen to the voice of Him who calls His people in every age to go out into the world to live and love, to witness and serve like Him and for Him. Christ sends us into the world as the Father sent Him into the world, and that into the world we must go, live, and serve. We must be salt and light of the world. Unless the salt melts, its effect will not be felt. Unless the light shines, it is no light. We must become salt and light of our society. This is our mandate. Let me conclude by quoting a practical theologian and applied theologian, Ray Anderson. To be representative of Christ and the Church, the baptized must be both near to God and near to the world of today. I repeat. To be representative of Christ and the Church, the baptized must be both near to God and near to the world of today. This spirituality, holy worldliness, must become the church spirituality.
I'm STC from the Telegraph. I just wanted to ask, you're talking about unity, role of religion in promoting inter-tribe harmony among Nagas, but what about the disunity, disharmony among the church organization? There is a threat war going on, not only in the state of Nagaland, but entire northeast and in the country. So instead of that, why don't you set your house first in order? Is there any possibility of churches coming together?
Yeah, I think that's one of the concerns that I have incorporated in my talk, but it will not be projected. I think that part, I think we call ecumenism, the relationship between the churches, irrespective of denominations. I think that's one thing that the church also need to work. There was once a kind of an organization, I think it was initiated by NBCC, called the Nagaland Christian Conference or Council. It's C, but it escaped my memory. It was functional, but I don't know it stopped its function. But that's one of my actually proposals, that it needs to be revived because it is constituted by members from different denominations, and they're coming collectively to work for peace. So I think that needs to be revived, and also I think subsidiary bodies need to be established in every district so that they can continue the work of peace building.
Reverend Keyho, anything?
Oh, yes. Nagaland Christian Forum, sorry, NCF, Nagaland Christian Forum.
Well, in my other presentation, a few months ago, I have stated this, that the denomination line is becoming thin, and the ecumenical movement is becoming slowly, or let us say, prominent. And I think that is a good move. We cannot we cannot say you all have to become Presbyterian or a Baptist or a Methodist or a Catholic for that matter. But I think we need to minimize that trend of thought and then dwell on our commonalities.
Thank you. Mr. Lotha, I remember speaking to you when we talked about, I wanted to speak to the Nagaland Christian Forum and you said, it's no more there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about churches coming together?
I believe things rest upon the understanding, one's understanding of the Christian principles. See, one could be attending a service another church, in one church. Another could be professing faith of another denomination, etc. But the depth of the understanding of the Christian values, here limiting ourselves to Christianity, will determine definitely the depth of our understanding of Christian values will be translated through the way we live, as much as through our speech. So I do not see how various churches, some churches continue to have certain opinions about the other church. Does it also mean to state that the depth of the understanding of the Christian value is wanting? I think these are some of the issues that the church leaders can take up, examine them in depth, then disseminate their finding for greater benefit of the congregation. Maybe this will also help in propelling our work in establishing harmony among the social groups. Not only that, it will also enable the church leaders as well as the members to propel the peace words. In this case, I would like to, though it is not immediately related to this topic, I would like to bring a mention of an information that I came by in course of my reading about a place in Sumatra where in one province they have as many as 16 tribes. Of the 16, 8 are ethnic hosts, as they call. The rest 8 are ethnic migrants. Now, you can imagine the tensions, the conflicts among these tribes, even amongst the ethnic hosts, those as we call the indigenous tribes. Tensions were very high, and to add to it, we had tensions again from the migrant tribes, the ethnic migrants. The conflict went on for many years. But suddenly, the initiatives of some people of goodwill brought about a formation of, as they call it, CCA, cross-cut affiliates. Now, this cross-cut affiliates was able to somehow bring the people together, and this affiliates philosophy was laid out in such a way that everyone had access to opportunities equally, on equal footing. They enjoy the same, they are
made to enjoy the same rights, same opportunities, etc., etc. And this CCA, the management of which was drawn from all these tribes, ensured that no one was discriminated. So that way it brought about a cessation in hostilities, and it brought about, as we may say, a harmony among the tribes. That also now brings us a little closer to home. Our neighbor in Arunachal Pradesh, we get to understand that the Nishis and Apatanis were rivals, and they had such deep-rooted hatred for one another for centuries together. But just last year, there was a pact between these two tribes, and the pact saw the cessation of hostilities, the end of hatred between these two tribes. So I think we can learn a lot from such instances. Now, coming back home, it took us, the state missionary, to notify a memorandum where it actually brings, it shows a very bad color of ours. Commissioner of Nagaland had to put up a memorandum to, however temporarily it may be, hold the hostility between two tribes in Dilsan district, which need no mention. Such tensions and clashes result in arson, loss of lives, displacement of people, damage of property, which again create serious law and order situations, etc. So now, in the interest of public peace and tranquility, I think these are the words that we need to underline as members of the Christian group. That also at the forefront. I think we should underline words like public peace and tranquility, maintenance of peace, harmony, etc. between different tribes and sub-tribes of the state. The Commissioner of Nagaland has ordered that no conference or religious gatherings, jubilee celebrations, etc. organized by students or tribal bodies, churches or non-governmental organizations shall be allowed in any place which is likely to invite tension and clashes along tribal or sub-tribal lines. See, it involves even the church functions. So does it tell a good thing about the church and the members of the church? Because in my understanding, the church is pure. It is the members of the church that such things happen. So, am I a good member of the church? Or, for that matter, am I truly listening to the messages being delivered by my pastors, by my priests? Or am I just going because people will speak good of me, seeing me attend a church service? I think these are some of the core issues that we as members of the Christianity religion should, I think, take down deep into ourselves, face them, and then come out a new person.
I'm Father Solomon from Catholic Church. I happen to be a member of NCF, that is Christian Forum, Nagaland Christian Forum. I work with the predecessor of our Reverend Dr. Zelhou Keyho, Reverend Sabote. Since the point came out, I just want to make a point. It needs to be revived. 2003, 4, and 5, I was in the Cathedral Church, and NBCC, represented by the Secretary, then AG, Assembly of God, and then NCRC for 2 or 3 times they came. Others were invited but they could not come. But with the initiative of this NBCC, the Catholic Church, then Assembly of God, we were able to also organize a 3 days conference. and during which many things were brought together. We forgot about our differences. We were working as Christians, not as a church, because when it speaks of a church, can be now the problem of denominations coming. But we were working as a Christian body to organize that. And I wish that since the point of disunity, when the Christians come together, I think many things can be solved. I was also thinking of the same point, but it was good that some of you brought up, and I also want to make it a point that this body should be revived. Since it was the initiative of the NBCC, I hope that it will be revived. I remember at least 2-3 issues were we addressed. Of course, it was it may be for good. In Angami, there is a word called Keyho. And during that time, Naga president was one of I forget his name, but he called together these NCF members, and then when our initiative to bring together the factions, underground factions, when it failed, he said, "Can we wrestle for a good cause, for a good purpose?" Unfortunately, when we tried to bring people together for reconciliation, I'm sure NPHMR also was there. Elias also happened to be present 1 or 2 times. We brought a few people of importance who had an image in the Naga society. They came and addressed us. We were trying to initiate how we can bring these different factions together. 2-3 times we came together and met, but unfortunately, as our Naga, then the Naga president said, our initiative led by NBCC was snapped, and then we were not able to. And then I do not know. Till 2005 I was a member there. 2006-07 perhaps with the tenure of Reverend Jabo Teherja coming to an end, this movement also came to an end. I also wish that this body be revived again. Because when there are, our speakers have mentioned about the conflicts facing us today. If you go as one church, as Catholic Church, or NBCC, or AG, or NCRC, the weight of our voice is much less than when we go as Christian body. And so I wish that this body be revived, and then I think many things can be worked together. Thank you.
I came to hear about the role of religion, but all the 3 speakers, to my hearing, they spoke only about the role of Christianity and Christians. So I want to say an opinion of mine on role of religion, not of specific one religion. Actually, in my opinion, religion introduces strife and disharmony. Come to Naga society. What has religion done for harmony, racial, tribe harmony? I said that I will speak what is in my mind. So, look, I think all of you remember that one Baptist village burned a Catholic church in the village. Do you remember? I remember it in my heart. A majority, overwhelming majority Baptist church people in the village together burned the Catholic church, just coming up. Is that harmony? We have tried. Religion have in our state have tried to bring peace to Kongyak Chang land dispute in Taboo. It tried very much. Our religion tried very much. It did not succeed. Chang Yip Sugar land dispute countries which have just mentioned, we have tried that the religion, the Naga religion, the religion that the Nagas profess, tried very hard. It did not succeed. Religion brought Eastern Orthodox Church and Catholics into disharmony, which is still today. It is now, I think, quite many thousand years. The same thing has done incompatible differences between Christians and Islamic civilization. For me, I do not know how these two civilizations based on religion can come into harmony. I don't believe. Africa is divided into two parts on the basis of religion. Southern Christian, Northern Islam. The twine, I think, that never shall come together. It is by religion. India, majority are Hindus, discriminate minority religions. But do you agree to what I say? Don't agree. Think about yourself. Jews and Arabs, differences. A highly respected reverend in my Baptist church, it said that, in fact, he said in the Baptist Monthly, said that Pope Francis could be an antichrist. Is that the pronouncements of a Baptist leader, Reverend? Can Baptists and Catholics be very better friends by hearing that? It is by religion. So, religion, I think religion divides. And therefore, what should we cannot leave religion. We have to believe in God. And we believe in our God. That we have to do. Then, what should religion do? Religion should behave like the UNO. It cannot give judgment. When two brothers came to Jesus to ask Jesus to divide the inheritance, Jesus said, "Who made me the judge between you?" A very, very valid question. Who made Christians to be judged? Christians cannot be a judge. If you people in the religion, they will know much deeper. And when Jesus Christ replies, we read, go on, we will say that Jesus Christ said that riches in the world is not the end of things. So some of them stated that the church is not the religion cannot make harmonize the differences in the world. What religion can do is to behave like the UNO, give the world a neutral platform. We people who profess, we people who believe in God, we are not to side any section of people. We are just to give the neutral Christian or religious platform so that people can easily come and make their own decision. I will end by my saying, please allow me to say that. I asked World Baptist Alliance President, said, why did the Peace and Reconciliation Commission of South unity of FNR faith. Why? He said, not because of religion. He said because of the spirit of Mandela. Peace. Mandela is not a Christian. He was not a Christian. Desmond Tutu was there, yes. A very famous, nice man, but it was not Desmond Tutu's religious platform that brought peace. The president told me that he was there on the reconciliation day, and there, the spirit of Mandela said that Africans have got heart to forgive the white people. And the world president, Dr. Morung, he said that the moment that was said, a spirit of friendliness came. As my recognition is that the Christian religion, nor any religion, should be very deeply involved in peace processes. They just have to give the platform. Jesus did not divide the inheritance quarrel between two brothers. He just asked them a question. He is nobody, though the Son of God, he is nobody to judge the case, the worldly case between two brothers who are greedy about the wealth. Thank you very much.
I'm Jonas Yanhan, new speaker. You know, actually, when we talk of religion, religion has, it was said, is a double-edged sword, or the word of God is a double-edged sword. Religion can be used in two ways. One, to domesticate people, and the other, to liberate people. Religion in itself is such a conflicting topic. At the same time, now we are talking about inter-tribal harmony, which it sounds as if our Naga society is going through a linear inter-tribal. Otherwise, it is not, in fact. Just a few sporadic instances. Now, religion is so important that the teaching is to be made from the Bible. And now the problem is, the Bible is one of the toughest books in the world, because it is not written in ordinary language, but in metaphorical and symbolic language. But now the saddest thing is, to study this Bible and theology, which is beyond, which is metaphysics. Now, unfortunately, in our Naga society, this study is for those among our children who is most rotten in the family, who is recovering from drug addiction, who is an alcoholic. These are the batch of people whom we send them to study Bible, which is the most difficult thing. And at the end of the study, they come back to take the most powerful and important place, the pulpit. I think this needs to be addressed. If we want a total peace and harmony in our Naga society, we need to reform this. And so my question to our NBCC General Secretary is, can the church, NBCC, find out a system of recruiting students who are willing to study this theology and Bible? Because we are to choose from the best. And if not, at least a certain amount of qualification. Okay, after BU and minimum. And the rest, okay, those doctorates or MA who wants to go for theological study, there is no problem. But at least we must keep a minimum educational qualification to study. At the same time, also look into what kind of a child or a boy or a girl he or she is. All these things needs to be made. And then the other suggestion which I would like to make is to study a Bible which is metaphysics, theology which is metaphysics. Now, a theology without philosophy is, in the end, it is no theology. It will be just imagination. There will be no concrete study of theology as such without philosophy. So can the church come out with a formula where minimum qualification is in place, and then immediately after they are recruited, they are to be sent to study philosophy, not theology, nor the Bible?
Thank you.
We all we know the problem, but it is not easy to address and say that we do this or we don't do this or we don't do that. But MBCC also has a theological wing where we also go through recognition process of institutions. In Nagaland, there are so many theological institutions, and I'm sure you are all aware of that. Someone just jokingly commented that from Purana Bazar to Chumukedima is called a seminary road. Because you turn left, you see one, you turn right, you see one, you look at the front, you see one. We are also aware of the proliferations of these and that institutions, but we also don't have the right to say you don't do this, you don't do that. The church has been instructed that they carefully screen the candidates, that as they go, they should seek the recommendations of the pastor. And if it has to come through NBCC, it should have the recommendation of the pastor, the executive secretaries, and so on and so forth. Rules are there, but sometimes rules become just like a paper tiger. It doesn't bite, it doesn't hurt. But under NBCC, outside of Nagaland, we also list out some institutions where people can go. And within Nagaland, I think we have 6 or 7 institutions that are recognized by MBCC, some across the denomination line. But as I said earlier, somewhere along the line, it goes a little bit wary. But thank you for the comment. I think we are working on it, and we are also careful in recognizing theological institutions that comes for recognition under NBCC. Thank you.
And if I'm being allowed to speak my heart, I would like to appreciate the resource persons. And if you allow me to speak my heart, Dr. Eyingbeni has profusely touched my heart. Elias has provoked me, and Reverend Dr. Zelhou has used me so much, for which I would like to thank three of you, precious. My picture of the audience before I came here was something like with mustache coming in, with darkened, then with all those this yellow clothing coming in and filling this audience. But nevertheless, I'm glad that all of us as a Christian has come to this gathering, and I would like to suggest just 2 points, because the topic itself says harmony among the Nagas by the promotion that is to be made by the religious people or by the religion. And in order to justify my point, I would like to introduce myself this way. I was born a staunch Baptist, raised from Catholic institution, studied and graduated from Evangelical Theological College, did my master from a fundamental theological seminary, did my doctorate from a Lutheran theological seminary, and then pursued my doctorate in divinity in somehow this charismatic and Pentecostal seminary. And the conclusion that I have come to play a very important role in harmonizing the Nagas is this. Let there be no Lotha Baptist Church. Let there be no Eyingbeni or our Baptist Church, our AG Church, or C as a Christian church as such. Let there be no Roman Catholic Church. Why don't we come back to the Bible? Just one. Church in Kohima, church in Timor, like that of the church in Philippines, church in Corinth. Why don't we have one church that belongs and the body of Christ alone? It is easier to say than done. So my question is this: whether the Nagaland Baptist Church's Council will be willing to renounce their very nomenclature and just take the name Church in Kohima or Church in Nagaland. Will it be possible, will it be workable for the Roman Catholic Church here in Nagaland to deface their nomenclature and name it as the Church in Nagaland? The second one, that is from the religious point of view. Second one is, in order to harmonize, can we abolish denomination, which gave birth to Inbo? Will the Inbo be willing to dissolve so that NDC will renounce their union, that CNDC will crush their name and just become a Naga? Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Are you willing to identify who you are?
I'm Zelhou.
Thank you. Thank you very much. At the heart of this question, I think it's something that most of you have pointed out. One I would like to say is when you said, Reverend Keyho, about we focus a lot on our differences and forget our similarities. However, the differences also identify our identity. And do our differences through that. I would like to come to Mr. Lotha's point about common good. Are we defining common good in different ways? And keeping those points in mind, if we can respond to anyone who wants to do that.
Well, I think one positive aspect that I personally observe is that today the preaching of a denomination, the days of preaching about denomination is almost over. And it would be also very idealistic if we just say renounce the word Catholic, renounce the word Baptist, this and that, and just call it a Christian church, because it is not the Lotha Church or the Rama Church that is bringing in the problem. I think we are divided on the line of language, if I may say so. And that is, to me, not a negative aspect, but brewing in something that is not healthy is something that we must avoid. But we all know that Lotha cannot go to a Kyrgyzstan church because of the language, or the Sema cannot go to the Konyak church because of the language. So, for convenience sake, I guess that kind of thing happens. But the problem is we bring in the tribalism component in our composition of the setup, and I think that becomes a negative presentation. And also to do away with the denomination completely may be something impossible if we are to be realistic. Being affiliated to this denomination, that denomination, I think is not the problem. But sometimes bringing in the tradition into the system becomes the problem.
I will continue with what he has said before I take that gender thing. Yeah, I think Reverend Tanso is pointing towards organic unity, and I think this has happened in the history of the church, particularly in the Church of South India, where they gave up their denominational identity and came together as a church and said, now we will be known as the Church of South India and also the Church of North India. Of course, some denominations refused to join that organic unity, and so they continue to exist as a denominational church, but that has happened in history. And there is a possibility, why not? But personally, I think, to me, the denominational affiliation is not a problem per se, especially in this part of the world. It is good to emphasize on unity in diversity between the churches so that we can work together for a common issue like inter-tribe conflict. So I think, to me personally, there is the ecumenical body called the WCC, World Council of Churches, that is trying to bring everybody under its umbrella, but not dissolving the affiliation of the particular denomination. Each denomination continues to affirm and maintain its denominational identity, but they come together. And the World Council of Churches is very much instrumental in also partnering with what one of our senior speakers have said, All Africa Conference of Churches, in order to bring unity among the people in the continent of Africa. So I think the role of the church is very much instrumental in bringing about global peace. So I don't believe in dissolving denominational affiliation, but I believe in working together. And coming to gender, yeah, I think the presence of gender in peace committee, in also whether it's a committee, a department, or a club, whatever we would call it, I think gender presence is very important because the perspective of a woman, I think, cannot be undermined, especially given that the experience of conflict is very real also to women. In fact, in most cases, women face the brunt of conflicts that are started by male in most cases, and so I think the perspective of women is essential in order to carry out peace work, and to do that, they have to be part of the core committee. So that's my point.
I think we all agree on that. See, just like the limbs, the head, the torso come together to form the body, and just like all these various parts work in unison, although each has got its own uses, functions, or names. Likewise, I think, see, the presence of denominations also give a very positive aspect of our society. It can also tell that the presence of various denominations is an indication that the curious mind of the Nagas are further drawn to experience, even in terms of our belief systems as well. Anyway, I think we are losing our focus if we have to dwell too much on that. We are all agreeable to what has been conveyed to us, which also goes on to say that, look, though we go to different churches, yet we have common grounds. These are the grounds that we must collectively explore if we have to strengthen our social values, if we have to bring in harmonious coexistence amongst not only our Naga tribe groups, but beyond us. And I think we can do that starting from our village. Someone was mentioning that the family is the first church. So if all of us can take care of our families, then I think we have no end to creating a better world. And naturally, definitely based on the Christian foundations, Christian values, Christian principles, definitely harmony in every sphere of life will just follow him.
It's from the Women's Commission. Part of the gender question has already been discussed, but in relation to that, I want to ask what the church's stand is on the status of the women. Because in the long history of Christianity coming to our land, women's services and women church leaders were always subservient to the men. And in that they seem to have followed the old customary practices. It is only very recently that women have become pastors in the church. Earlier, even if she was the pastor in the women's section, the name pastor, the title was not given, associate pastor. And there are only very few reverends, women reverends in our church. So, taking that as the basis, if you have to tackle with the centuries-old customary practices of the men, would you be able to take a stand to support the rights of women in order to make that inter-tribe harmonious society? Because it cannot be made only by men. Women have to participate, as has been rightly said by Dr. Eyingbeni, that the present representation of women has been nothing. And one last remark. I've heard many men say that the woman was made from a man's rib, so she has to remain subservient to man. And in the New Testament also, they fall back on St. Paul's dictate that women should cover their heads and etc., etc. I forget the chapter and verse, but you will know what I'm talking about. How do you react to that?
I know that this question will come up, but I did not prepare myself to answer. Not because I don't have the answer, but because of the unfortunate things that are happening in our situation. In the first place, I think when Christianity came, it took a deep root in our culture, our traditions, and unconsciously, I guess, that trend even has been passed on to the church, which I must say it is very unfortunate. But personally, I see no reason why we should talk about reservations or whatever that the modern
society is talking about, because the church should not get involved. When I say the church should not enter into that, because the church must always continue to encourage leadership, whether male or female, based on the calling. And I think that message has to go out. Not because of the gender, because in ministry, if we are to divide abilities in terms of gender, it would be very unfortunate. We will be losing the message of the Bible. Many years ago, I wrote an article in a journal based on the text that you just mentioned, the passages, the two passages, or whatever you just mentioned. That the reading is a hermeneutical issue, interpretational issue, and we cannot just be interpreting and then subdue the participation of women in the church, even for that matter in ministries and also in teaching ministries. If we continue to do that, then we will not come to the full realization of the body of Christ. Because the body of Christ, even as a church and also in ministry, composed of both male and female. There is no Greek nor Jews, no male, no female. And I think that the church platform is to continue to stand on that and encourage both the components, both genders, so that we realize the beauty of the church and also the beauty of ministry.
I had experiences working with women across the world who are working for peace, and I've been very much inspired, in fact, to observe that women, when they come together as sisters. And this I say as a testimony of one of the Jewish women who participates in the inter-ethnic they have this meeting every now and then in Jerusalem, where Muslim women, the Palestinian women who are also Christians, and also the Jews. Some of them are practicing Judaism and some of them are Christians. They come together, and then one of the women said that when we come together, we forget all about our ethnic and also religious identities. We come as sisters. And I think this is true also in Nagaland among the Nagas. But I say this because perhaps I grew up in Kohima. And I think this is also true of those people who grew up in Kohima and Dimapur, like that, where there is coexistence of different tribes. It's very natural to relate with one another without asking what tribe you are or what village. Most of my friends, I don't even know what village they come from. And a tribe was never really a question on my mind. We jumped together, and Nagas was there, and of course in the school English was there. So there was no dividing factor, and I think in most cases, as we have mentioned, land disputes continue to be the major factor of disunity, conflict, and also murder, of course, which is inherited usually among the Nagas. And I think one of the positive things about Naga women, not too concerned or obsessed with land. So I think it is very easy for us to relate with one another. That's why I think land being one of the major issues of conflict, we really need a very strong theology of land to change that. Because I think, as Dr. Keyho has so rightly pointed out, we take pride in going back to our traditions and doing evil things. Like, for example, the 5th March, which was pointed out by our Mr. Elias. On the if you're keeping tab of the conversation that was going on online, there was this support coming from a lot of young men. This is what a Naga is about. This is the right thing to do. You know, we take pride in conflict and going back to our pre-Christian practices. So I think a very strong moral, spiritual grounding on the Word of God and Christian principles is required. And I think in a lot of ways, women lead the way in showing us what those principles are about. And that is why I keep on insisting, women should be there in the deacon board, women should be there in the committees, all the committees of the church, women should also be there in the higher bodies, also in Naga Hall, but it's not happening. So that's the sad reality. And I think the quicker we have women, I think perhaps there will be a way out. That is why I'm so hopeful about the 33% reservation in the urban bodies.
Thank you. Mr. Lotha, if I